What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast. This is your host, Drew Camp here, as always, founder of the Epic Dad Company. And my mission with this podcast is to help you level up as a dad and become the husband, father, and man you are called to be. Guys, I am psyched about this episode. I have been following this man for quite some time. He is a personal role model of mine. He has done some just incredible things in his life as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a community leader. Today, my guest is none other than Mr. Steve Eckert. Steve is a personal discipline and development accountability coach. He is a United States Marine. He's an entrepreneur. He's a husband. He's a father. And he brings his military leadership, strategies, and tactics and combines it together with being an entrepreneur, father, and husband, and has helped over 20,000 clients flip the switch, as Steve says, and get incredible results. Steve co-founded The Project, which is a 75-hour crucible men's personal development program, as well as co-founded the father and son program called the Squire Program. And when my son is old enough, we will definitely be going through that together. The energy, passion, and raw authenticity that Steve brings to the table is incredible. And my hope is that you can get some key takeaways from our conversation today and start immediately implementing them in your life as a husband, father, and community leader. All right, guys, with that, let's hop into the episode with Steve. Are you ready to become the dad you were meant to be? Good, because this is the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast, where imperfect actions are better than perfect ideas, promises kept are more important than promises made, and nothing happens unless you make it happen. My name is Drew, father of three, the founder of the Epic Dad Company. My mission is to help dads up their game and become the husbands, fathers, and men they're called to be. We need epic dads now more than ever. And it is your responsibility and obligation to become the best father you can be and show your kids what is possible. Listen in for weekly tips, strategies, and actions you can take to go from average dad to epic dad. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the episode. Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast. Hey, my guest today is none other than the Steve Eckert. Steve, welcome to the show, man.
What's up, brother? I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you. I don't think conversations like this happen enough with men, and I've followed you for a while, and I see you're one of the real ones. There's not many real ones left out there, so I'm looking forward to it.
Dude, I appreciate it, man. And hey, just a quick spoiler alert. There's going to be some F-bombs dropped in this show. I'll go ahead and tell you that much, which, hey, we're all about it. So, hey, if you got kids in the car, put your headphones in because we're about to drop some fire with Mr. Steve here. So, hey, Steve, for guys that don't know you, that, this is the first time hearing of you, can you give, a quick summary of what you got going on now, kind of who you are, what message you're spreading to the world?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a husband, father, United States Marine, and I've come to realize that I think the purpose in life is to have kids, and to be, as a man, is to be a father. And that's really what I've just dedicated my life to. So all the decisions I make is it something that's leading to me to be a better father? And that means going out and helping other men become better fathers. So pretty much all the different programs or businesses or coaching that I do has to do with helping men. And we say in one of our programs, The Project, we say we're helping them kill the inner bitch to unleash the beast. So from bitch to beast with men. And even tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. or I got to leave at 3 a.m. to go to the Squire Program. It's a father-son program for fathers and sons that are from 13 to 16 and things like that. That's what it's all about, like leading the way, and not just doing it myself, because that's not good enough. Then my son will just be all alone in the world as the only developed man when he's older. So it's to help other men do the same thing on the kind of stuff that I see you working on as well.
Yeah, man, dude, it's so important, man. I think, us as dads, we get wrapped around the fact that, like, hey, our role is to be a provider. I think everybody would probably agree with that, right? Once you have a kid, is you want to provide. But I think really naturally where our mind goes to is providing financially, right? Like, it's my job to put a roof over our heads, to put food on the table, and like, that's it, box checked. But I think when you really think about providing, there's so much more than that, right? And it's really about providing the leadership. So what, guys like you and what you're doing out there, especially with the Squire program, is just fantastic, man. I think my son is 16 months, so he's not quite old enough to, put his head under freezing cold water. But when he is, you better believe we're heading out there, man.
Hell yeah, that'd be awesome.
So you weren't always like this though, I'm assuming, right? So kind of take me on the journey from, from Steve wanting to start out as a personal trainer to kind of where you are now.
Yeah, well, I actually started doing personal training when I was in the Marine Corps, but
Okay.
and that was just to help other Marines get involved with their own, get better on their physical fitness tests. So I got certified on my own while I was still in the Marine Corps, started training all the Marines that were underneath me so they can get better scores in their tests. And then I realized how personal training, it was so much more than just the workouts and the fitness. And then I started a personal training business, opened up gyms. And even from there, it just kept escalating. I always see everything as the stepping stone to the next big thing you're going to do in life. And that's where it's led to the coaching and the project and all the different men's personal development and coaching that I do now is all started from back then. It's all just different forms of coaching, helping people to kind of flip that switch and realize what they're really capable of and who the fuck they really are and what they're truly capable of. Because for years, even before I was in the Marine Corps when I was a kid, I never knew what I was capable of. I thought I was worthless, didn't have what it takes. And that's just the childhood that I had and that I grew up in. And then as I started realizing, wait a minute, there is a way to change your mindset. There is a way to flip this switch and start doing some awesome shit, and realizing it myself and having these self-discoveries and breakthroughs and aha moments and flipping the switch myself. And that's the goal in life, is to lead the way to the kids and then help other men to flip that switch also, the same way that I kind of trying to figure out on the way.
Yeah. Take me back to childhood for you, man. How was your relationship with your pops growing up? And did that, have an impact on you and kind of what you want to do now with your kids?
Yes, I lived at home until I left for the Marine Corps till I was 19. And I wasn't home half the time when I was a teenager. I was always out in the street doing all kinds of crazy
shit.
Yeah, exactly. But so that's 19 years of living in a house. And in 19 years, I never had one single conversation with my father, never sat on the floor and played Legos with him, never threw a football, not one single time. He never showed me how to change a tire or change oil or taught me anything. Never even, I mean, when I say not a single conversation, I mean not a single conversation in 19 years. It was just a ghost, a lonely existence, and just a living hell just by myself and having to figure shit out on my own and pass the time by myself. But I learned to turn that suffering into a superpower. And today I can easily sit alone in a room, or when I'm traveling, sit in a hotel room for 5-6 hours by myself when I'm just waiting for an event or waiting to go speak on stage somewhere or something. And I'll sit there and get so much shit done because, this is just another day at the office. I did this for 19 years at home. So now I could use this to be a little more productive. So it's all about turning that suffering into a superpower, because that's what the childhood was. It was just misery and suffering and no positive male role model. And I basically just thought, I'm going to learn that blueprint from my father of exactly what to do by looking at what he does and say, I want to be nothing like that motherfucker. I'm going to do everything the exact opposite of what he's doing.
Yeah. So when were you in the Marines? What years were you in?
97 to February of 01.
Okay. Very cool, man. Yeah, I was a little bit after you. How old? Do you mind me asking how old you are?
Yeah.
I mean,
45.
Okay. I mean, you still look like you're, obviously in good shape, young. So you said 97. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I was an Army guy. I was a little bit late, 2010 to 14. And so, we kind of have a little bit rivalry going back with the Marines, so I'll send you a care package for sure with some crowns in it, Steve, so.
I was stationed on an Air Force base.
Were you?
In aviation support. So I was on an Air Force base for a couple of years in 97. And whenever I was running the PT sessions for the Marines, whenever the Air Force, they'd come sludging by in their unironed uniforms and sloppy untucked in, all this other stuff. I'd call it Air Force push-ups. We'd all lay on our back and just push our hands up in the air and counting off 1, 2, 3, 1. They can't imagine why they hated us on those bases.
Yeah. Well, hey man, you said something that I really want to dive into and kind of expound on what you mean, right? You said we can flip that switch and really figure out what we're capable of. Like, what do you mean by flip the switch? What is the process for us to figure out that holy shit, man, I'm capable of way more than I probably thought that I am?
It's a decision, but it's also, it's easy on paper. It's really easy to do, but most people don't do it because it takes hard work. But it flipped the switch, say, from thinking of something that was causing suffering and turning, all right, I'm going to stop using this as an excuse, stop using this as a crutch, stop using this to dig myself deeper in a hole, and I'm going to make the mental decision to flip the switch on this thing and turn it into a superpower, or this obstacle and turn it into an opportunity, or this chaos and turn it into order and structure, or this emotional reaction and turn it into something rational. It's all just really a decision, but it takes time to build up over time. And it's reinforced by just daily disciplines and daily habits. It all comes down to discipline. Everything always comes back to discipline. You can't flip the switch without having built up that discipline and resilience muscle on a daily basis, day in and day out, when it comes to whatever your things are, whether it's meditation, prayer, journaling, of course, working out. That's a daily thing, no matter what. I'm training 7 days a week. I take 0 days off, no matter what. That allows me to have the discipline when it comes time to need the mental toughness or the self-awareness to flip the switch from the doing the right thing to doing the wrong thing, or from just being average to just being awesome, from the negative to the positive. These are all forms of flipping the switch. And it's so easy. You could even just say these almost like as mantras in your head, and it'll flip the switch mentally, as long as you're done making excuses and looking for the easy way out and looking to blame someone else and pointing the finger and being passive aggressive and approval seeking. Unfortunately, that's like 80 to 90% of men today, even men with kids today, which then it's just disgusts me. Like, if you have kids and you're still making excuses and still using your past and your childhood and race and gender and all this other shit to hold you back and excuses, it's disgusting, especially when you have children and sons that are looking at you of how to be a man and you're unable to flip this switch that we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, the pivot point for me, man, was having a son, right? I've got 2 girls, 7 and 5. And like, not that like having them didn't flip a switch in me to become a better person, a better man, a better leader. Like, it absolutely did. Right. Because I want to set the example of like the type of man that they would want to marry one day. Right. And like, show them how to treat, they should be treated right in the way that I'm treating their wife or my wife and their mom. But when I had my son, man, it just really opened my eyes to like, holy shit. Like, I need to turn this kid into a man. But like, it just really forced me to look in the mirror to be like, okay, what example am I setting for him? Because he's going to grow up and be like me one day. And so like, I need to take a really hard look in the mirror and make sure that I am displaying those values, those traits that I want him to have as he grows up. It was just like a total mental shift, man, for having a son.
And it's the exact moment for me too. It's fucking mind boggling to me how any man that has first a kid in general, but then specifically a son, that is still just walking around with a gut and not spending time with their kids, and think just because they're bringing home some paycheck that, like you said earlier, about just being a provider, they think that's enough. Like, it's mind boggling. It blows my mind how they could think that, when I know when I had my son and my first kid was a son, I was working like 16 to 18-hour days when I used to run my gyms in New York. I was there all day. And even after he was born, and I started realizing, you know what, I'm turning into my father, whether whatever reason I'm absent. It's the same neglect to my son. He's going to grow up not knowing his father the same way I did. He doesn't give a shit the reason why. You're not there for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. He doesn't care that I'm growing this empire and all this other stuff. So that was the same flipping of the switch in my head is with a son, and realizing we got a heavy weight on our shoulders, and we got to get our shit together and get our fucking house in order.
Yeah. And I think, like, to me, the ultimate thing that I think like drives and flips that switch that a lot of guys miss is responsibility is going to drive it. Right. And I think like our culture so much today, and like dads included too, right, are like, hey man, I want to like take it easy, relax, like have no responsibility, but like, I think you can flip that switch and find the freedom in responsibility. And like, perfect example of this, right, is with the military. I'm sure you were the same way. The Marine Corps is like, hey, I was a leader and I was in charge of people, and like, there is no freaking way that I was going to let them down. And like, I was going to make sure that like, I can be the example, right? I'm setting the example. I'm going above and beyond what my guys are doing. Otherwise I'm a hypocrite, right? If I'm telling them to do something, I'm not willing to do it myself, then I'm a hypocrite. And like, same thing, even back in basic training, man, I'm sure they did it in the Marine Corps, is like, yeah, your drill sergeants would smoke the shit out of you. Right. But guess what? They'd be right there doing it with you. It'd be like, hey, knock out push-ups. And then like, they're doing push-ups with you. Right. And like, same thing, with what I do with my guys. And then now what I'm trying to do with my son, it's like, hey, if I'm telling him that he can go be whatever he wants to be, if I'm telling him that he has this unlimited potential, unlimited capacity, he needs to shoot for his dreams and like go after it, right, and go get it. Like, how can I tell him that with a straight face if I'm not doing the same thing, right? And I'm not leading by example that way. And so it's such a huge opportunity, man, for us to kind of shift the paradigm and like you said, flip that switch once we have that additional responsibility of having a son and having to be a leader.
Yeah, I think that's seriously the meaning of life. When I sit and I really go to deep, dark reflection about what is the purpose of life, what's my purpose, or just the purpose of anyone, I think it's having kids, and specifically a son. And I think anyone who doesn't have kids, can they find a purpose and a meaning? I think they probably can, but it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to find. They have no clue what it's like when they don't have kids. Like when you have a son, that is the meaning of life. Like what better? And yeah, it's a lot of weight on our shoulders and a lot of stress, responsibility, everything you're saying, but it's fucking fun. Like we have a blast. Like with once you have kids and they start growing up a little bit, you can start doing all this kind of cool shit together. Like we have a blast with my kids every single day, every day. The complete opposite again of what my child was like. I'm just learning from experience and using that as a blueprint about flip the switch from boring and miserable to just fun and awesome. Same idea.
Yeah. Well, hey man, I want to dive into something too. I was listening to a couple of your recent podcasts and love the podcast. By the way, if you guys aren't listening to Steve's podcast, go check it out. He's got an awesome. It's fairly new, right? I mean, you've got like 10 or so episodes in, but
new one when we switch over to the podcast format.
Yeah. But dropping them, man, it is awesome content. I'm loving it, Steve. I was listening to one today about goal setting, and I love the way that you kind of shifted the paradigm there too. But like even going back before you start to set goals, like I think a big thing that dads need to focus on is with that responsibility. Like you need to have sovereignty, you need to have control, right? And this is something that I struggle with. I'm sure a lot of dads struggle with. They're like, hey, Steve, that sounds great, man. I would love to flip the switch, start doing all this awesome shit. But like, I don't have control over certain aspects, right? Like your kids are homeschooled, right? My kids are going to school. We'd like to eventually work towards homeschool. Mm-hmm. But like, they know that, hey, I potentially want to get my kids out of school. I potentially want to step away from that 9-to-5 job, right? That I don't have control over my finances and I'm kind of, beholden to an employer. Like what are some things that we can be doing and what is really the first step that we should be doing to say, okay, I want to paint this picture of what life looks like and then start to action on that to flip the switch.
Yeah. And it's all that stuff didn't happen at once. Some of it was taking years of not just manifesting. People, yeah, you could start in your head and visualizing it and manifesting it, but then you got to get to fucking work after that. It's time to get to work. But it's starting with, all right, what's that end goal? What's that ideal lifestyle you want to live? I call it the freak freedom lifestyle. What is that lifestyle I want to live? All right, there it is. Now, and go deep into deep detail about where am I? What's a day like? What kind of people am I around? What kind of language am I using? What kind of words am I talking? How much money are you making? What does your day look like? What do your relationships look like with your kids? What kind of people are you hanging around? Down to the details of the conversations and words and the tones of your voice and the energy that you're bringing to each situation and the gratitude that you have and the force that you're bringing into the freaking universe. That deep level of picturing that and planning that about what it is. And then, all right, now reverse engineering it to what do I need to do today to take me a step closer to that? Am I going to get to that in one day? Hell no. I wanted to live in California when I had 2 running gyms in New York, physical locations, but I wanted to live in California. So it took probably 18 months to 2 years, step by step, methodically putting pieces into place, putting management in place, putting everything, standard operating procedures, just like we learn in the military, like every single detail so that the business could be running on its own. So I could run it remotely from across the country and not have to worry about it. And then on top of that, thinking even forward past that, not just living in California, what's going to be the next thing beyond the gyms once I'm done with the gyms and want to sell them, already forward thinking into that and start reverse engineering that. So what am I going to be working on once I'm in California besides just running the gyms, and just putting that into a daily practice, step by step, and tapping into that big picture every single day, briefly visualizing it, writing it down. What are those goals? So it's just hardwired into your brain, but now putting that in the parking lot and, all right, what are the steps today I need to do to get to work in order to be one step closer to that? How long is it going to take? And set a deadline for that and a goal for that. It was the same thing for before I opened a gym and I was doing in-home personal training. It's all right, I wanted to open up a gym. It was the same thing. What are the steps I'm going to need to do to get there? Then what were the steps I needed to do to move to California? Then what were the steps we need to do to close the gym so I could move on to these other businesses? It's seeing that, always forward thinking. And here's one, and that all sounds great, but here's a tangible thing that I think men could do. I call it, it's the NBT. I call it the next big thing time. It's a time block on my calendar that every Friday, so like today, for about 2 hours. And now I do it more often because I have a little more freedom. But when I was running the gym, or say someone has a 9-to-5 job, let's just say someone has a 9-to-5 job in something that's not necessarily what they want to do forever. They want to maybe start this business, or maybe they wanted to get into real estate investing on the side, but they can't because their 9-to-5 job is, a 9-to-5 job is more than 9 to 5. It consumes you. So what I would do is on Friday nights, Friday evenings, where things were kind of slowed down, I had NBT time. It was a 2-hour time block on my calendar where I'd be focusing on the next big thing. What's the next big thing? And only in that 2 hours I'd focus on it. Like literally the Squire Program, which we're starting tomorrow, started on NBT time. My one-on-one coaching program started on NBT time. The project started on NBT time. So when we started the project, all of us, the founders, we all had full-time things going on, our own businesses, our own companies, or full-time jobs. We knew we wanted to do this thing. We were compelled to start this thing called the project. We would just meet for a dinner, 2 hours every like 2 weeks for several months. So let's imagine you have that 9-to-5 job and you want to get to real estate investing. You put 2 hours a week on the calendar at a dead time of the week, Friday evening or Friday late afternoon, whatever day that is for you. And imagine if you put 2 hours uninterrupted, noise canceling headphones on, and you're diving deep into real estate investing for 2 hours a week. And that's it. During the week, you're not touching it. You're not thinking about it because you have to keep your main thing, the main thing. But on those 2 hours, you are going deep and hard and aggressive into that real estate investing. Think about it. After 3 months or 6 months or a year, you could have a real estate portfolio, or if it's a business you're starting on the side, a side gig, that's a side hustle that's making $1 million a year while you still have your full-time job if you want. And then eventually you could take that next big thing and start doing it 3 times a week, let's say every 2 hours. And then eventually you're doing it 20% of your time. Then eventually you're doing it 50% of your time because it's starting to now make some revenue or make some money. And you decide, all right, this next big thing, I want to make it become my main thing. So now that next big thing becomes the main thing. Your previous main thing, either you automate it or delegate it or eliminate it. So we did with our gyms. We made the decision. The next big thing was going to be the project, was going to be one-on-one, higher level coaching and coaching programs like that we're doing now. So the goal was either to eliminate the gyms. We didn't want to run them anymore. I did it for 15 years almost, and it was time to move on from that. It was on to the next big thing. So putting those pieces into place and week by week, just building that up. You could start a $1 million side hustle by 2 hours of uninterrupted, just focused, deep, dark work on whatever the thing is you want to work on. So just a 9-to-5 job. I know people who have had 9-to-5 jobs that have side gigs that make more money than a 9-to-5 job, and eventually they can quit it.
Yeah,
if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think like two important things on that. I think one, the scheduling, right? The scheduling time to do it. Like what doesn't get scheduled is not going to get prioritized, and that goes with anything. And I'm like the biggest culprit of this too, right? And it's something I'm actively working on. But it's like, hey, if you don't schedule date night, it's not going to happen. If you don't schedule strategic time to think about your goals, it's not going to happen, right? And so utilize your calendar. Put time on there so that is to remind you, because it's important. You want to put it into your schedule. So that's one big thing is leveraging the schedule and calendar to put that important stuff on there. It's going to force you at least maybe not take the action, because you can always make the decision to look at your calendar and not do it, but it's going to be on your calendar. It's going to force you to take the action of thinking about that and making sure that it's top of mind. And then 2 is I like how you said that you're going to connect with kind of that higher level, like vision and purpose daily and your goals daily. I'm curious to know how you do that. There's all types of different programs and gurus out there that'll teach you different stuff like that. You guys saying like, hey, you need to meditate for like 30 minutes, every day, blah, blah, blah. Like, but I think it's going to be different for everybody. I'm curious to know, how do you do that? And how do you connect with that kind of higher purpose and those goals on a daily basis?
Yeah. Awesome question. So first, on the first thing you mentioned the date night, right? When you were saying about if it doesn't get scheduled, it doesn't get done. I wrote down the words date night, and then you said it because I had a feeling that's where you're going with it. And it's crazy that married men with kids, I go to sometimes workshops where I'll be training the entire companies, and there'll be 50, 60 people there, and 80% of them are married. And I'll ask how many of them have regular date nights. Maybe 1 or 2 will put their hands in the air. It's freaking crazy. How many of you haven't had a date night in 10 years? Almost 80% of them. Fucking nuts that and then they wonder why they're just stressed and the shit is all out of whack. And even with your kids, specific things with your kids, time with your kids. Like I have a son and a daughter. So there's specific time on my calendar where I'm just with my son, specific time on my calendar where I'm just with my daughter, specific time on the calendar where it's just me and the 2 kids, and then specific time on the calendar where it's all 4 of us, me, my wife, and 2 kids. So every different variable and dynamic. And then my wife has the same thing on her calendar. Time with just my son, time with just my daughter, time with just both of them and without me. And then obviously all 4 of us together. And those times are both for kind of hanging out, but also then for our homeschooling type stuff. So we're just getting that, all the different dynamics of one-on-one, and every one of those things is on the calendar. Now imagine seeing that on my calendar, a one-on-one time with my daughter, and I decide not to do it. Well, you deserve to be a miserable fucking loser if that's you. So yeah. And then the other thing in those types of things, when I'm asking about the date night, I'll ask the men usually, or men and women, doesn't really matter, what percentage of their calendar is professional, is work. And that across the board, hundreds of thousands of people that I've asked this to, 95% is professional. They don't have anything on their calendar personally. They'll have all kinds of crap on their calendar for everything, for business meetings, for sales meetings, for prospects, for marketing, for everything. Nothing on their calendar for their family. And it's disgusting. Like that, you should be ashamed if that's you, if you're not putting that as a priority. And then you'll say you're working and you're doing all this stuff and you're hustling because, like you said, you want to be the provider and all this other stuff. And yet you're neglecting your entire family. They're getting the leftovers of you when you get home after an 8 or a 10-hour day, and you're showing up at home just exhausted and sitting on the couch, having no energy left to play with them or whatever. And they're getting the worst of you, the leftover, the least version of you you're bringing to your family, and you're not even planning shit on the calendar. Like it's a disgrace. And for any men out there, that's the case. And if it stings, I hope that stings, and it should sting a little bit, because you need to get your shit together. So that was the first thing on the timing thing. Then the next thing you were asking was about the higher level kind of vision and daily. And yeah, that's the thing about that is, let's say a morning routine. There's people say you got to wake up at 5 a.m., the 5 a.m. club. There's people that say you need your 8 hours of sleep. And yes, sleep, hell yeah, sleep is important. And right, everyone knows you need 8 hours of sleep, and no one gets it. And then they wonder why they're groggy and they're whatever else. And they think they don't have time to sleep. They don't have time not to freaking sleep, first of all. But and then you look at morning routines, and people ask me all the time, well, what's your morning routine? I need a good morning routine. And I'll give them ideas or frameworks, but not even tell them my specific morning routine, because then they'll try to follow that. I want to give them ideas and frameworks that they can fit their schedule, their personality, their goals, their character, that's going to work for them. So taking like Bruce Lee would take pieces of all different martial arts to do what works for him. So that's the first thing I want to make sure that the men out there don't think you have to go choose the morning routine that says, oh, you have to wake up at 2:45 and do the cold shower and the ice plunge, and then you got to jump in the red sauna, fucking heat light and not lamp and all this stuff. Then you got to pray to Buddha, and then you got to do Aum and all this other stuff. And next thing you know, it's 8 hours later and you haven't gotten shit done for your day. So find what works for you. Like my morning routine happens to take about 60 minutes. Does everyone's need to take 60 minutes? Does everyone have the time in their schedule for 60 minutes? Probably not. Some might have more time. That's just what works for me. Some people get it done in 15 or 30 or 20, whatever it is. But yeah, it's checking in with that higher level every single day. Like I have a journal right here, and every single day it's written in there, and I'm writing down the first thing I'm starting off every morning with. And these are things that everyone can follow along. However they do it, however they break it down, is gratitude. And before we're even worrying about goals or vision, I'm tapping in to gratitude the first thing, literally writing it down, everything I'm grateful for on the big picture, like on a daily, there's certain things that are there every day, your family, your pets, your house, whatever. But then specifically like that day, what happened that day that I'm grateful for, what happened the day before, a deep level of gratitude, and taking time in it. Not just people just write down that or say they're grateful for their family and their job, and they just go through it and check the boxes. I'm talking about real gratitude, like an energy, like a life force. I'll sit outside sometimes and just in the sun and just do it mental gratitude exercise, and just feel like injecting that energy of gratitude into the freaking universe, and feeling the like life force that it's bringing from putting it out there. Like that's the level of gratitude we're talking about. So things like that. And then that turns into the goals and the vision about where am I looking to go? And I'm actually writing it down every single day, visualizing it every single day. And I do meditate every morning also. If someone doesn't want to meditate, if prayer works for them, if guided meditation works, seated, standing, whatever works for you, doesn't matter. Don't worry about what the next social media influencer is doing and think you have to go do it that way. You find what works for you. I just sit in a chair. I have headphones on. I listen to a guided meditation app, and I'll tap into the visualization of where I want to go. I'll tap into some more gratitude while I'm doing that. And it's also all been written down. I'll write down all my own personal mantras. I'll write down my goals for the day, the top 2 or 3 things I need to do for that day. I'll write down what do I need to improve that day. I'll write down my victories from the day before. So I'm also tapping into my wins. So I'm building that momentum. Like, imagine starting off your day every single day. And I'm talking 7 days a week without fail, whether it's travel day or tomorrow it's a Squire program. I have to be there at like 4 a.m. and it's an hour away. I'll still do this before I even go to do that every day. Imagine tapping into that level of gratitude, that level of checking with your victories and your wins, that level of planning and preparing and visualizing about where you're looking to go, and then tapping into the actual action steps you need to take that day, looking into what do I need to improve on from the day before, looking at and thinking, saying, writing down whatever your mantras are, and you're starting the day like that. Like, after I'm done with that, I can't have a bad day. No matter what happens, I'm not going to have a bad day, no matter what. If you've already set the tone and the intention for the day.
Hey guys, pausing this episode with Steve for just a second. I hope you guys are getting some awesome key takeaways. Hey, I wanted to let you know about our Epic Dad 7-Day Challenge. Now, this is our flagship challenge that we have within the Epic Dad company. We've got a lot of programs. We've got a coaching program. We've got supplements. But really how we can dive in and help you on an individual basis become the husband and father man you are called to be is through our free Epic Dad 7-Day Challenge. Now, this challenge is designed to get you out of a rut, to get you some momentum so that you can start showing up the way that you know how to. Think of it this way. When you are sitting flat, let's pretend you're a C-130 sitting flat on the runway, right? It's hard for that C-130 just to get up and take off and start going. It needs some momentum. And that is what the Epic Dad Challenge is designed to do. It is 7 days and 7 emails with 7 challenges. And each challenge is between 10 and 20 minutes long. And I guarantee you that if you can follow directions and take action, you are going to start getting the momentum that you need to get off the ground, to get that C-130 off into the ground and start soaring. So guys, drop down below and sign up for the Epic Dad 7-Day Challenge and start getting some momentum. And we will see you inside. Yeah, you just said a word right there that I love, intention for the day, right? And that's really like what I use my morning routine on. And I've gone back and forth with probably a billion different things that I've tried, right? I've tried like the hour and a half routine, where I spend like 20 minutes trying to sit still and like there's squirrels going on in my brain. I can't do it, and then I've done one that's like, okay, let me just wake up real quick, like do some gratitude, and like that's it. And so I think it's gonna be different for everybody, right? It is what works for you, and you'll find a rhythm on it. But I think the most important thing, right, is setting that intention for the day and not waking up and being like in a reactionary state, because your family's going to sense that, right? You're always going to be in a heightened, state of alert. You're going to have stress. And so it's just going to allow you a little bit of that time to kind of get your mind right, get some planning for the day. So, I've
asked the question in these groups to individuals, and these are professionals, usually pretty high level professionals. How many look at their phone and check their email before they even roll out of bed? Their alarm goes off and they open their email up, and it's like over 50%. It's nuts. Like, that's how they're starting their day, looking into something that came the night before. And now they're just reacting to the day is now pulling the puppet strings of their life, and they have no control about their focus, their intention for the day, because they're just going according to those little fires that are popping up.
Yeah. And if you are getting up early, right, it doesn't have to be, 3 a.m. Doesn't have to be freaking 4 a.m. But let's say you get up at 6 a.m. right? Like, what are you actually going to solve with an email at 6 a.m. right?
Exactly.
So set your intention for the day so you can go into that and respond instead of react to stuff. But I think too, with the morning routine, like, it takes discipline, right? Like you may be motivated to do it for a couple of days, and then it gets a little bit harder, because you're gonna have to wake up consistently at a little bit earlier time. So like, how do we go about building that discipline? Because you said that word, a number of times, and I think it's so important for us as fathers to build that discipline. How do we go about doing that?
I think the gateway to all this and the gateway to discipline is starting with your workouts, like knowing that I'm going to work out 7 days a week without fail. I don't care if I'm injured, sick, traveling, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm working out. That's going to automatically let me know I did something disciplined for the day. I did something good for myself today. I'm going to get a win that day. I have a guaranteed win every day, no matter what. So that's the, like, I think the foundation and the discipline, the gateway discipline drug is your workout. And then tie that next step into nutrition. Now you're energetic, you're fueled the right way, and that's going to allow you. And then the next step is sleep. All the basics that everyone knows. People know all this stuff: work out, eat healthy, sleep, get your sleep, and then all these other little small daily habits, that's why they're daily disciplines. I don't even call them habits. They're like daily disciplines, chipping away, starting with them. Start with meditating for 3 minutes a day if you want to give it a shot. Start with a blank journal and just write down a couple of things. What are your top few things you need to do for the day? The top 3 things. Start with that. Start it and build that momentum and build that muscle, just like sets and reps in the gym. That's why that discipline in the gym, that rhythmic in the gym, that you see it building and building and building, and then you're increasing your strength, increasing your endurance, increasing your discipline. Same thing with everything else. Just slowly build up those muscles day by day by day. And these are not hard freaking things to do. We're talking day one shit. Everyone knows you need to work out. Everyone knows you need to eat healthy. You need to be hydrated. You need to get sleep. You should be checking into some gratitude. You should be setting these goals and planning your days out and structuring your days out. And the beginning is what we already talked about, is the morning routine. That's a place to start, getting the right amount of sleep, training, and then that morning routine. Like, you start building on that. That would be the foundation.
Yeah. And I think, like, even more than the discipline it's going to build, it's really going to help propel you into momentum, right? Which is where we're going to take action and get results. Like, we've got to feel that momentum. And so, like, and I would say that's even kind of like what's going to help flip the switch, right? Is like, let's just kind of take the analogy, right? That you're, and I think even Bezos has used this analogy, that you're like, you're a big C-130, right? Sitting on the runway at a dead still, and it's going to take a lot of momentum to get that thing started, to get enough, runway and enough lift to get that thing off the ground. And so you're not just going to like go from a dead sit to flying all of a sudden, right? And so, like, yeah, we all want to fly, right? But it's going to take those little pushes of momentum to get us there. And it's going to be those disciplines, those daily habits that are going to help to build that momentum. And then all of a sudden, a week later, right, you've taken these actions consistently. You're like, holy shit, man, I actually feel kind of good, right? I've got some confidence. And then now that's going to start to build a little bit of momentum. And then so it's those little things, right? And you can continue to stack wins day in and day out. And then all of a sudden you're in momentum, you start taking on bigger and bigger things,
Yeah, stacking the wins. Like, I always say, if I had to start over, if I went broke and had to start from the beginning, what would I be doing? I'd be doing the exact same stuff I do now. Waking up early, getting my workouts in, eating healthy, tapping into gratitude in the morning, getting my time to write some stuff. Like, I know that's what's it's going to cut the peaks, and that's going to cut the peaks and valleys. You're not going to ever get too high. You're never going to get too low. You're going to stay centered. You're going to maintain your bearing, maintain your discipline. And it would all come back to these basics, the fundamentals. The basics and fundamentals win the war. Think of in combat. If you sit and you train a certain way all the time, and you're training on breathing while you're shooting, and how to trigger control, and all the firearm safety rules and everything else, and all your tactics and strategies when you're training in peacetime. But then when wartime comes, you abandon all those basics and fundamentals. You're going to get destroyed, no matter how strong your force is or what technology you have. Like, the basics and fundamentals win the war. And that's always what's going to keep you centered through the ups, through the downs. Like, no matter what, if you're winning and making shitloads of money, stick to the basic fundamentals. I'm still going to train every day. I'm still going to tap into gratitude every day. I'm still going to write down my goals every day. If I'm dead broke or having a horrible month or lost a bunch of business, I'm going to still work out every day. I'm still going to eat healthy every day. Like, I know that's what's going to be the common denominator that's going to get you through it. Like, the problem is, people go, I think, ass backwards. They'll do these types of things, but on the peaceful time, on the slow time. But then when shit gets hard, they abandon it because, I'm traveling, or there was a death in the family, or an emergency, or whatever excuse. And then they miss the workout because of that reason, or they don't do their journaling or their meditation, or they eat shit instead, or they don't get enough sleep. When those are the only reason you're doing it during peacetime, and training for peacetime is to be using those strategies, those tactics in your tool belt during the wartime. And we abandon it. Most men abandon those tools during wartime and only get them down for peacetime, which is ass backwards. The only reason we do them during peacetime is so they're ready to be implemented and used during the wartime, during the hard times, the crazy days.
Yeah. How do we teach this stuff to our kids, Steve? Like, I think part of leadership, right, is you need to lead yourself first. right? And that's kind of what we've been talking about is how to flip that switch within yourself, realize that you've got a lot more capacity, a lot more runway, and you start leading yourself. Like how are you taking these lessons that you're learning and passing that down to your children?
Well, they have a saying that lessons to your kids are caught and not taught, but I think they need to be caught and then taught, because I forget what the situation was. I can't, it's not on the top of my head, but something happened just a couple weeks ago with my son, and he saw how I reacted to it. And I assumed that he caught the lesson, and he didn't. Then I talked to him about it. Like a couple weeks later, he said, "Oh, I thought this," and I can't remember the situation. So he caught it, but he caught it the wrong way. So they're kids sometimes; they're maybe misinterpreting it. So they got to be caught. They got to catch the lesson, and then we'll kind of debrief it. We'll talk about it, about why I did what I did the way that I did it, and that's the first thing, is don't just expect them to just catch everything you're doing just because you're doing all this awesome stuff. Yeah, they're going to catch it, but then also teach it, also talk about it, have discussions about it, explain it, give the reasons why you're doing what you're doing, the way you're doing it, behind it on some of those things. So that's the first thing. And the next one is, we already talked about it, intention and attention. It's just not enough of it going on. People aren't given enough time. They're given all their 95% of their calendar to work. And then that work is stressing them out. They have this anxiety. So when they are with their kids, they're opening up their freaking phones and working instead, and getting home and still doing emails, and not diving deep into the intention and attention with the kids. And that's going to be huge anyway. Just giving them your time and attention. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you're doing it together and hanging out. It doesn't even matter what it is sometimes. And the same thing goes for working out. They might see you working out, and if you're doing it every single day, hopefully they're going to get into it, but it might not be their thing, and finding ways to make that work. Like, we're having this 24-hour weightlifting challenge coming up.
Yeah,
this Saturday coming up, actually. And my daughter, who's in the family, not the biggest one on working out, she'll do these like crazy, ridiculous hikes that only experienced hikers could do, that take like 15 hours with like 6,000 feet of elevation climb. And then other days she's just like, I'm not working out today. She just, I think that's just the way girls are. She just doesn't give a fuck. So, but we're doing this 24-hour challenge that she actually came up with, because we did this one bike ride. It was like 130 miles, and it was just easy. So we had to think of a list of all these hard physical challenges. And she came up with bench press a whale. She wanted to bench press a whale. That was in her mind. So we said, all right, how can we make this happen? All right, we're going to lift weights for 24 hours, try and lift the amount of what's the biggest whale. So she researched all the different types of whales. What are the weights of all the different whales? Where was the largest recorded whale in history found? And now we turn that. It's going to be a miserable, horrible 24 hours of doing this, but she's going to be doing it with us, even though she's not the biggest one on training in the family. But the rest of us will do it automatically. But we let her put some input into it. People will support what they create more than what you force upon them. So she kind of created this thing, and now we all are going to suffer doing it together, but it just sounds fun and cool. We're going to bench press a whale. Another one she put was, she wants to wrestle a bear. So we had to fit, one of our future challenges is going to be how we're going to wrestle a bear. So we're going to do jujitsu for 24 hours at some point coming up. Like, that's going to be equivalent to wrestling a bear, just getting our asses whooped for 24 hours in jujitsu. So things like that, making it fun, getting input from everyone. And again, people will always support more what they create, what they come up with. You might even know the answer to something and not give it, and let them come up with that answer that you know what it is. Even if they have to suffer and lose and fail to come up with it, sometimes they're going to support that and dive into it much more than if you just said, all right, we're going to go weightlift for 24 hours because we have to, because we're a disciplined family and this is just what we do. And that's what we're going to do. So it's, lessons are caught and then taught. Let them help create the ideas, and just be present, give attention and intention, do shit together regularly. And they're just going to want to do shit together, whether it's something horrible and miserable and not even fun, or basic, or whatever it is. They're just going to want to be together. They're going to enjoy being with you. It doesn't matter what the freak you're doing, rather than the opposite of the way a lot of people do it.
Yeah. I mean, I love getting your kids involved the way that you have with fitness, right? Like, both my daughters and I joined on one of you and Tyson's like Saturday workouts, and but we had a blast, man. It was so much fun, and I mean, I tell you what, like, I was pretty smoked. I don't know what
oh, he kicks my ass.
I don't know what Tyson's doing.
He runs the workouts, he kicks my ass. Yeah.
But my kids had a blast, man, and I love the idea of getting them involved and kind of letting them have like a leadership role in that, because like for a couple of reasons. Like one is to your point, right? Like they're probably going to be a lot more into it if they're coming up with the stuff, right? But then it also helps to kind of create that leadership capability early on, right? Of like, hey, you're responsible for coming up with this. Like I'll help you, but ultimately this is your gig, So I think that's kind of cool. I'm definitely going to start integrating that with my kids. Like I work out pretty consistently, probably 7 days a week on most weeks. I may have an off day. But I'm out in the garage and the kids are just around, and just getting exposed to that environment. And like, they'll want to do some burpees. They'll want to kind of get involved and stuff. It's just really cool to have them, see dad kind of go through some hard stuff. And then it just normalizes too, that like, we're just the type of family that works out. Like fitness is just part of our life,
and seeing you working hard, seeing you struggling with stuff and jumping on a pull-up bar and just struggling at the end of a set, like seeing it's okay to struggle, like humanizing yourself a little bit in front of them and seeing it's working hard and working through it and getting better and improving. Like we have a family meeting each week, each Sunday we have a family meeting. And one of the first things we go over is our workout, our workout schedule for the week. What days are we working out? Who's working out with who? Where are we working out in that week? Who's going to the gym? Like my son will come and work. We work out of the gym together 3 days a week. And the other days we're at home and the whole family's at home doing it together. So there's always someone working out with someone. Like if you told me 20 years ago when I was doing all my meathead lifting and all this other stuff in the Marines, that one day my workout partner would be a 10-year-old kid. I mean, he's 12 now. We work out every day together. I would have told you were nuts, but shit, we do real full extreme workouts every single day together. And it's awesome. Like what could be better? What could be better use of your time? Think about it. Like there's times we'll have a workout at the house with people over. And so first of all, you're working out, you're getting training in. A lot of times it's outdoors. You're getting some outdoor time, some fresh air. You're with family, you're with your kids. Sometimes you're with friends. Sometimes we have clients over or prospects over. Like what could be a better use of your time than just training with your family? Like in those kind of conditions, it's like a force multiplier. It's just fucking awesome.
Yeah, no, I want to start doing more than that. That now my two girls are a little bit older, and they kind of start getting a little bit more involved. Tell me about the family meeting. I love that idea. I love that concept. That's something that we toy around with, and we could probably do a better job, of kind of having a set structure. So like, what type of stuff are you guys covering? You already mentioned the workouts, right? But what are you guys doing in those family meetings to kind of help you throughout the week?
Yeah, so we have a family meeting and then a weekly book club. The book club is not as consistent, but we have a book right now. We're finishing Bedros Keuilian's Man Up book. So the whole family has a copy. We're reading it. But my daughter runs that meeting, but then the family meeting, my son runs. So he's the one running the entire meeting. So I'm not having to they're always expecting me to do it. So we start off, he starts right off, just like we start off our morning routines almost. We go around, what are we most grateful for that week? Then he goes around and calls on each of us to go over what were our big wins for the week. Then what were our struggles or things that we had trouble with or need help with from the week. And then we set up the goals. What is our main goals and the main things we're going to work on the upcoming week. And then we go through schedules, and that's where the workouts come in. The first thing on the schedule is workouts. Our whole schedule revolves around workouts. As long as I don't have a travel day or I'm going to speak somewhere or something, or a Squire program. Other than that, like our day, we go through it each day by day. Who's going to the gym? What time with who's going to be working out at home? What time are we working out? Like and then our rest of our schedule is revolved around after that. But that's kind of stuff we're doing in the meeting, and we're connecting, getting to know each other. They're getting to know me more. I'm getting to know them more. It's freaking awesome. And sometimes it could feel like a chore to them, but then once we get into it, we start cracking jokes and having fun and talking shit, and it's awesome. And that's the weekly meeting with all of us. But then also, again, I also schedule meetings like today. After this, I'll have a meeting with just my son, one-on-one meeting, and then a meeting with my daughter, one-on-one. And that's just a meeting in my office. We just meet, we talk. What do they need help with? What can I help them personally with? Like me personally, it's just me connecting with them one-on-one, not going to hang out or have fun. We also then have that stuff scheduled, but we'll have an actual one-on-one meeting with each of them each week. So all this stuff is, again, on the schedule. It's on my calendar, broken down. It's all color coded. Everything has its time and its place. So like right now, when I'm on here with you, I don't have to stress about what else do I need to do today. And I could be 100% focused and dive deep into our talk here, because I already know on my calendar, I'll be meeting with my son one-on-one. After that, meet my daughter one-on-one. And then we have family time scheduled after that. And I know that's all accounted for. So I don't have to feel guilty about doing stuff like this. I could just dive into it and go all in on it. So it's structure equals freedom.
I love the idea of the family meetings, man. I kind of come from a corporate background. I'm sure a lot of you guys listening are kind of in the corporate space, 9 to 5 jobs, right? And probably in some type of leadership capacity. And like, what's one of the first things you do, right? If you get into a managerial role, it's like, okay, cool. We're going to have a weekly team meeting and I'm going to have my one-on-ones, right? And so it's kind of treating it the same way, with the family. And it's so funny that we do that in our work setting, right? But we don't do that in our family setting. And the reason we do it in the work setting is because we want to have that connection. We want to know what's going on. Yeah, it does. It works great.
It makes you productive and you get to know the team better. And then think of I just did a podcast with my wife. We recorded it, but we didn't release it yet. But it was exactly about that, about what are areas from business that are working, areas that you're having success in business that you could transfer to your family. And then what are areas in your family you're having success you can transfer to your business. So it all becomes just a cohesive unit. And that was one of them right there, the meetings, the one-on-one meetings. And then on the family side, you schedule like trips or vacations or social time, but then companies don't do enough of that stuff. They do once in a while, they'll have like a Christmas party or something, but regular times for them to connect outside of the office, let their guard down a little bit, or even core values. You have core values in the business. What about family core values? Like we have a family core value. We call it the Freak Code, and it's our 12 core values of the family. And it's awesome. Like thinking about what works in a business. If it works there, scheduling, time blocking. If your schedule is 95% business, why not also schedule your family stuff? If it's working there, it's keeping you organized, structured, and profitable. You want to be profitable on the family front also, and your relationship front.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. It's kind of the integration of like what works in one can work in the other. And then, it just goes back to what you're saying too, about like 95% of stuff's on our calendar is work because we view that as more important than family. So like what better way than to have that mindset shift to say, okay, I'm going to take some of the things that are successful on the business side and bring that over to the family and prioritize that. Right. That's awesome. And then to your point too, I think one thing that we do well on the business side that we probably bring back to the family side is like, yes, family, like weekly meetings to kind of get set on like tactical stuff and create some connection. But then two is we do a lot of strategic planning in business too, right? Like probably on a quarterly basis. Maybe half a year, but most likely a quarterly basis. You're going to sit down with leaders, in the business and kind of, say, okay, where are we at? Right? Where are we trying to go? And kind of think strategically, right? So you can probably apply that in the same way to your family meetings and kind of have a quarterly visioning section, right? Of like, hey, this is kind of what we've done. This is where we want to go, over the next, quarter. And if anything has shifted since our last one, we can kind of make updates to that, right? And that's going to help inform what those family weekly meetings are about. And that your goals you're setting is that you're now all on the same page and you've kind of done that strategic planning as a family.
Yeah, 100%. And then also on the flip side of that, so there's strategic planning about, like, say the kids want to do this garage sale. And when Tyson wanted to start this fitness business, we had strategic plan on that, how to put it into place. I pulled up some old SOPs that I had from other businesses that I created that helped him out. Now he knows how to, and I didn't have to teach him it because it was all in a file that I made from a previous business, how to go into Zoom and upload the recording, how to get it onto YouTube, how to change the title, copy and paste, because I had a whole SOP created for it. He writes his own emails for it. He scheduled them out. He does the recording. He uploads the recording to YouTube, does all that stuff himself, all off of basically one of those meetings, a meeting like that, a strategic planning meeting. And then on top of that is AARs. We then do AARs also on the weekly meeting, but also on a kind of ad hoc as needed basis. Like after like the workouts that you went on when he started when he's 11 years old running Zoom workouts live for people. Like shit, that age, you couldn't have paid me $1 million to go on there. I would have pretended I was sick or injured or hell no was I going on there and doing shit like that. I would have been a freaking wimp about it. But when he's done with it, we have an AAR about how he did there. How did he talk about? What kind of questions did he ask? What was his energy like? How were his cues for the exercise? Then we have an AAR so he can get even better. And he knows that it's, if it's stuff that he has to improve on, not take it personal. And it's all about making him get better every single time, giving and receiving feedback. Like that's another thing in work. You give and receive feedback all the time to your team, or you should be at least. But then in your personal life, you don't do it all. You're too afraid of hurting people's feelings, even with your friends or like in the project. One of the most uncomfortable that the men get, and we do some horrifically torturous things to them in the project. One of the most uncomfortable, hardest things for them to do is stand face to face with another man and give him direct feedback. And then even to take that feedback and know how to give feedback other than, and they're looking at the ground, they're talking under their breath, they're not even making eye contact when they're giving feedback. So teaching the kids how to give feedback, how to receive feedback, because then we're having an AR on his performance on those workouts that he's running. And we're going over what he could have done better. And there's times I'll ask him for feedback. He does my recording of all my podcasts. And when we're done, we have an AR and he gives me feedback about sometimes I might have rambled on too much, or I dropped too many F-bombs or something, or whatever it is. And he'll give me feedback and I'll ask him for feedback. I'll be like, how was it? What could I have done better? Or he comes to see me, like family comes to see me speak in person on stage sometimes. Right after, the second we're done, first thing I'll do is ask them for feedback. What could I have done better? What made sense? What was out of order? Where did what was not smooth? And they'll give me feedback and I'll ask for it. You're hungry for it. People want it. We think that they don't want it. And we dance on eggshells around it because we're afraid we're going to hurt people's feelings. That's because society's gotten so weak and soft and politically correct that people are still hungry for it. The real people are still hungry for it and need it to get better.
Yeah. How do we wake those people up, Steve? I mean, I think you would probably agree with me, and like a lot of the content that we push out, with the Epic Dad is like, hey, the way that we change the culture from, this wokeism, this passivity, which is really going to be the answer to, turning our country around. We've got to wake dads up. We've got to help them become the leaders that they're going to be. But Ellie, how do we do that on an individual basis?
I think there's such a large percentage of people that are just going to be like that till the day they die. They're never going to get it. It's like almost an 80-20 rule that we're going to have to just go so hard and lift up the 20% that want to be lifted up to such high levels that they can outpower the other 80%. And it's a uphill battle. And I was just having this conversation with my kids the other day, because now they're getting into YouTube and they're creating their own YouTube channels because they're getting creative and editing videos and all this kind of stuff. And we were talking about this same thing. They'll see some videos that I'll put out and I'll think it's like some great content and it'll get like 7 likes or something. They'll be like, and then they'll show me some stupid, horrible, fucking ridiculous video that has like hundreds of thousands of likes. They're like, they can't comprehend. They're like, why did yours get 7 likes? And this is so stupid. And I told them, because the internet, like, if I'll never make it big on the internet, and really like almost like after getting to know you and seeing your stuff, you'll never explode the way that you should on the internet, because you keep it too real and too raw, and you're not being fake, and you're not just appeasing people and selling out, or whatever you want to call it, just to act all stupid and goofy, just to do something real dumb and ridiculous just because you want a bunch of views and likes. Like that is the majority of the internet. The internet's fucking fake. Like I know people personally in real life, and then you see the shit that they put on the internet. And I talked to my kids about this literally just yesterday. We had this conversation about how the internet is so fake. I know people in person who go on their ice baths every day on the internet, and in real life, they've said it. I've heard it out of their mouth that they just go in for 1 second for the video and then get out, and they've never done a real ice bath. But they're on there talking about discipline. We've had people in the project come through that all these motivational speakers and all this do hard stuff, and they don't last a couple hours in the project. Like the internet is fake. And that's why if you're not fake, it's so hard there's a rare few that could even ever get the traction online without being fake and fraudulent and doing things the wrong way. Like if you're doing things the right way and you're trying to being a good person and being real and raw and authentic, everyone talks about authenticity, you don't make it, because you have to, they're so fake out there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I'm challenged with online, right? Is like, I don't want to put shit out that like I'm not doing myself too. Right. And it's like, hey, if I'm struggling with it. Right. And there's times too, right? Like I struggle with discipline. I hit the snooze button occasionally. I say I'm going to do something, I don't do something, like that happens. Right. And I'm like, well, shit, man, I'm trying to like put out this message of like, be disciplined. You need to be the leader you can be. But then it's like, oh shit, well, I don't want to like just post something fake. Right. And have people see through that. So I think what you said there is so important. Is like the guys that are legitimately trying to make a difference and to spread that message are like real people, and they're not putting fake shit out. It's going to be tough for growth, because like we're speaking the truth, brother.
Yeah. You're not going to find me going there and act like this goofy and say all this bullshit that these people say just to get some likes. And if you're trying to do the right thing and trying to be actually real, you almost get punished for it. And there's so many, I could give examples all day that I've seen of it. Like I've had people come to some of our other programs and not even nowhere near as tense the project. And they'll put these videos out about it was so grueling and intense. And I didn't know it was going to happen. I don't know if I was, and meanwhile, it's an event where it's like catered and there's like all these gourmet meals. And it's like, and they're like, I survived 50 hours of special operations training. And it's like a joke. It's like a fun day, a fun event. And like, and then you see it and there's hundreds of thousands because then they edit it the way that it looks like they're going to die and they're suffering so bad. And it was like it's ridiculous. And then people are like, wow, you're really brave. You're really tough. You're really mentally tough. And knowing the truth behind the scenes, I'm like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Well, dude, man, tell folks about the project, man. I mean, I know all about it for sure. Love what you guys are doing over there, but for guys that haven't heard of it, what are you guys up to over there?
Yeah, that's a 4-day in-person here in Southern California. It's a personal development, self-leadership, self-mastery program for men, where it's to help them flip the switch and kill that inner bitch and unleash the beast. It's to become an even better husband, an even better father, an even better leader, an even better man. And we go off the 4 pillars of the family, the fitness, the finances, and the faith. So you can finally have fulfillment in your life. It's all about breaking through the barriers of what you thought was possible and really finding out on the deepest, darkest level who the fuck you are and what you are truly capable of, and really what's your higher calling and your purpose and potential in this world as a man, and what is your responsibility of a man. And with all that being said, that's why we have usually an average of a 40% dropout rate of men that come through the program. And this last class was over 70% dropout. Oof. Because men are just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So we have to just like latch on to that 20% and just make them such savages and such men and such warriors and such savage servants that we can overpower the other 80%.
Yeah. Well, dude, man, I love it. I love what you guys have going on the project. I absolutely love what you have going on the Squire program. That's something that my son and I, when he is of age, are definitely going to do. I think it's one of the things that we're missing, I think, with our sons, especially in this day and age and really in the States, is like, rituals and rites of passage, right? And kind of like steps along their journey to manhood to let them know like they're on the right track, like my experience, I had a great dad growing up. He worked super hard. He instilled values in me and things like that. But like we never really had kind of that discussion, right? About like, this is kind of what a man does, right? And then it wasn't really until I had my own son that I started asking those questions, right? Of like, okay, what is that? And what I want to do is instill that into my son as he's starting to grow up, right? So I've already started to think about like, okay, hey, when he's 8, like, what are we going to do to kind of celebrate that, right? On his path to manhood. And like, okay, when he turns into a teenager, what are we going to do? And so he's only 16 months, so we've got some time to kind of bake those into the cake, but it's kind of already starting to forward think about how am I going to raise him so that he knows he's on the right track. And he's instilling those values that are inherent in manhood.
Hell yeah. Did you ever read the book, Raising a Modern Day Knight?
Dude, that is one of my favorite books of all time.
Awesome book.
Yeah, man. I read that right when we found out that he was going to be a boy. I never thought I'd have a son. There's a running joke that like infantrymen just have girls. So I had 2 girls. I was like, well, we're going to have a third one. But as soon as I found out that it was a boy, I just, started doing a ton of reading, and I love that book, man. I love the 4 pillars that a man does. I've got that actually written on my mirror right now that I connect with every day, that a man accepts responsibility, a man rejects passivity, a man leads courageously, and a man expects the higher reward.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. So those are like instilled in me now. And that's what I'm going to teach my son growing up.
Oh yeah. That's so cool.
So, well, Steve, man, where can guys find it? Where are you most active at?
They could find me out there in the real world. It's
right.
It doesn't even matter. They don't need to search on the internet. If I'm meant to cross paths with anyone, they will run into each other at the right time, at the right place. That's what matters. They can find me by going out and leading their family, leading their kids, and we will run into each other when we're supposed to run into each other. That's how they can find me, by injecting that real manliness and leadership and being a role model into the world. That's the only thing I can say about where to find each other.
I love it, bro. Well, dude, I'm so glad we've gotten to connect, man. I know we've been wanting to get this on the table for a long time and talking back and forth, man. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you dropping some value nuggets and wisdom on our listeners. And guys, you heard Steve, go out there and get in the real world. start taking action, flip the switch, and become the man that you're supposed to be. So, Steve, thank you, man. We look forward to staying connected. And guys, we will catch you on the next episode.